Greetings, YouTube. This is your good friend, Fragments of Memory, aka the Armchair Philosopher. Now, recently in the news, May 1st to be exact, Osama bin Laden was murdered, or assassinated, or killed by the Navy SEALs team under the direction of President Barack Obama. And I know I've done a video on this already, but this isn't really about that. It was just about the way people have been reacting to it, and just the United States, our whole we wave our flag proudly mentality. And if you bring up any type of criticism towards the flag waving, sentiment, the flag waving patriotic sentiments, not necessarily say you outright criticize it, but you have your questions, you have your concerns, and maybe some criticism, some fair, valid criticism, not just throwing accusations around. Well, your patriotism is questioned. And then you're told, would you rather live in a socialist nation? Would you rather live in a communist nation or a dictatorship? Let me start off by saying that I think the United States of America has a great system. I think there are some good things in the United States. However, I want to point out to all the so called right wing conservative Christian folk that during the founding of this nation, our founding fathers, while penning the words, all men are created equal, owned slaves, benefited from, profited off of, and had and owned slaves while they were penning the words, all men are created equal. The same people that said we're for freedom and justice and liberty for all, with justice and liberty for all in the Pledge of Allegiance, backed up things like segregation and Jim Crow. So I think it's funny that these same people, the right wing conservative Christians that are on the Fox News network, want to sit here and attack one's patriotism. How can you dare say America's not noble? I'm not saying that America does not have noble ideas. I'm just saying that America has not always lived up to those ideas and ideals. So I look at stuff like that and I'm fascinated because it seems that a lot of those people tend to skirt over the issue of slavery or try to justify it or try to rationalize it or try to wash it away somehow. And that doesn't work because just as the signing of the Constitution was a part of U.S. history, so was the slave trade, so was segregation, so was Jim Crow, so was lynching. So while this country had great men like Abraham Lincoln, they also had Jefferson Davis. And it seems that anytime you bring up that criticism, you're accused of playing the quote unquote race card. Oh, you're just playing the race card. Well, I think in some cases there are people that may play the race card, but in other situations, race and ethnicity are valid. And I think sometimes that a lot of these conservative folks tend to, no offense, be white Christian folk. And some of them still have their ideas about minorities and minority groups. Now, don't get me wrong, I've known white Christians, and I think white Christians are good people and wonderful human beings. But I also recognize the fact that the history of America has not always been kind to blacks. Langston Hughes put it in one of his poems, it was called I Too. And basically, in the line, he said, I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They tell me to go eat in the kitchen when company comes. So that's the idea that's how I feel about the United States. On one hand, I think the United States is a great country, but on the other hand, I know its dark side too. And let us not get it twisted. Every nation has been guilty of slavery, robbery, and cruelty. That quote comes from Paul Nathaniel Johnson. That is an actual quote where he says, all nations have been guilty of slavery, robbery, and cruelty. And I just thought that that's a really good quote. That no matter where you go around the world, some government has done some horrible thing to another group of people or to its own people. So, looking through the pages of history, people are merely asking questions and saying, if we have these ideals and we do this, does that make us better than the people that we either A, fight against, or B, don't necessarily share the same ideals that we have? So that's just something I've been really thinking about. Now, this isn't here to beat anybody over the head or say, hey, you're a bad person if you love your country. No. Love of country and ecosystem are common amongst people. That is what people do. But I also recognize that our country has a checkered past. Our country does have points in its history where, well, let me not just strictly talk about the African slaves. Let's talk about Native Americans, the people that were here, the Cherokee, the Lakota, the Apache, all of those people. They too felt the hand of invaders on their own soil. So, and then those same people turned around and came up with things like Manifest Destiny, and there's the Trail of Tears, and there's the Monroe Doctrine, and there's the whole quote unquote pioneer spirit. So we have a checkered past, and too often we also forget that blacks, Indians, and Chinese people helped build the railroads. So I look at all of this, and then that. So when I think about all the history the history that I know, which isn't considerable, but a lot of U.S. history I remember from school, it fascinates me because these same people are into this whole denial, like, oh, I can't believe they're playing the race card. It boggles my mind. But then I realize they don't live the black experience. I don't live their world either, and their world might be a little different. What's another thing? Well, let's go to the church people. Church people are quick to wave the flag, and unfortunately, no offense to my Christian people out there, my Christian buddies and whatnot, but I've seen situations where, though the church is one of the strongest institutions within the black community, many of the parishioners or leaders of the black church are taking advantage of the black congregants, i.e., the preacher taking money, and i.e., the preacher using tithing and offering to get more money, or people that say they're born again but act worse than the so-called heathen or the unsaved person. And again, when I look at things like that, here we have these wonderful ideals that we don't always meet. So when people talk to me about patriotism, I don't hate them for talking about patriotism. Just don't question mine if I have a legitimate criticism or concern. That's my piece. Thank you for listening. Peace.